Bienvenidos. I'm introducing Lorena Jimenez. She is a probation officer, and I want her to introduce herself, and she is quite amazing. She's a Denverite, and she did go to Denver Public Schools West High School, and she has a lot to offer, and she has a master's, and she can tell you guys all about it. If you guys have questions, you guys can put that in the chat. I am the only one who can see that, and possibly even Lorena, so it is private, so nobody else will see it. And again, like I mentioned, this will be recorded, and then we'll go from there. And I will turn off my camera. So when Lorena, and if we can have everyone else turn their camera off too, we want Lorena's face just to be the one thing that is being focused on as she speaks. Thank you for joining us. Take it away.
Well, thank you everybody for having me. As you can tell, I am in my office right now. I work for Jefferson County Probation. My name is Lorena Jimenez. I am bilingual, and I would be more than happy to talk about my story. I'll let everybody know briefly that my parents are from Mexico. They migrated here to the United States. I could tell you guys a little bit of the story, how we came about. But I did grow up in West Denver. I went to St. Joseph's Catholic School because the neighborhood that I grew up in was a very drug and gang infested neighborhood. I ended up going to West High School, graduated from West High School in 1995. I attended Metro and got a degree in criminal justice. And I graduated from Metro in 1999. I will tell you that I have been working with the judicial branch for a little over 14 and a half years. I've also worked with the Department of Human Services in the child protection area where I invested child abuse and neglect, and I'd be more than happy to talk about that. But for today's presentation, I want to make sure that we're covering what probation in the state of Colorado does, and I'm more than happy to answer anybody's questions as well. But thank you. It is an honor for me to do outreach and let our community know what options are out there, because probation was not my career plan. I didn't grow up saying I'm going to be a probation officer. In fact, I was planning on going to law school and becoming an immigration officer, and we can talk a little bit about that. But anyways, as a probation officer, we do carry badges. As you can tell, this one has my name on it. We are officers of the court. District attorneys carry badges as well. Law enforcement officers carry badges as well. We are categorized as law enforcement because we are officers of the court. So although we don't carry guns in the state of Colorado, we provide information to the court for public safety. So I have other things I would like to show you as we move forward, but a probation officer career and probation. This presentation tells you briefly what exactly we do. And basically the purpose of probation is to provide pre-sentence investigation reports to the court. And the reason for that is because it's important for the judges to know exactly what is going on that specific, with that specific individual, whether it's mental health, substance abuse, family history. We like to know what is going on in that person's life so that we can best serve them in the community and provide them the resources that we need. We have to remember that probation's purpose is to rehabilitate, to keep people in the community. So being on probation is a privilege. It's in lieu of going to jail. So we provide supervision. So depending on the crime, there's a statutory amount of time that people are supervised. So for example, if you're on probation for a DUI, you typically get on probation for 2 years. Felonies, it could be 4 years. I've had people on probation for up to 7 years. It depends on the specific crime. And we also provide victim notification. So when somebody gets in trouble, the district attorney's office usually communicates with the victims. And then once somebody gets on probation, we have actually officers that communicate with victims as well. And Yvette, I can't see any other questions. So if there's any questions, please let me know. Stop me at any time. Again, this is pretty informal.
I will. So the teachers that have joined us at this point, if your students have questions, please type those in the chat and we can get to those at the end. If we don't get to them, we will get them answered. Thank you.
So once again, this slide talks a little bit about pre-sentence investigations reports. We have an entire unit that meets with the probationers. They gather all the information, all previous mental health evaluations, all previous treatment, discharges, education. Then we get information from their families. And this is a report that's compiled and it's done before the offender is sentenced, so that we have those recommendations for the court. So again, the pre-sentence investigation report includes criminal history, education, financial, marital status issues, residence, if somebody's homeless. We want to know what are the good things that are going on in people's lives. You know, do they like to play hockey? Do they like sports? Do they like arts and crafts? Do they play an instrument? We talk a lot about companions and antisocial, social and antisocial activities, because these are key components on what's going on in this individual's life. We want to know who their friends are, who their support systems are. Do they have emotional issues? Do they have mental health issues? I want to know what their attitude towards the crime is. Does this person have empathy regarding hurting this victim, or does this person empathy means, do they feel sorry for the crime that they did? And if they don't, then we look at things a little different. We want to hold them accountable for the crimes that they've committed. And then those recommendations go to the court, and it's targeting those specific criminal risks, those specific criminogenic needs. So these reports are, they're pretty lengthy. They're about 15, 20 pages long. And it has all of the information. At that time, the probation officer makes a recommendation to the court whether they feel jail probation is appropriate, maybe going to jail and doing some work release is appropriate in addition with probation, or if they feel that that person cannot be managed on probation or supervised on probation, then we recommend community corrections, which could be, it is actually a more restrictive, more structured place. And this is what we call halfway houses. We have a lot of people in the halfway homes. Or if the crime is that bad or that heinous or that severe, then we don't feel like they could be in the community, then prison is a recommendation at that time. Any questions about those? So the specific officer that does the investigation report, they are not the officer that will supervise the client. They meet with the officer prior to the client, prior to sentencing. They will go even to the jail to meet with the client. And then once the client is sentenced by the court, then if he gets probation, then he's assigned a different probation officer. So the most important thing about supervising clients on probation is it's our job to promote public safety. So it's my job to make sure that the client who is on probation is
Lorena, your voice is your speaker lost your audio for some reason. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, you might want to go back like maybe 8 seconds.
Okay, so I was talking about promoting public safety. And so it's really important that, you know, we make sure that the victim is safe. It is our responsibility to assure victim safety in the community. So if we have a client who has been, who is a sex offender, and we have a victim who is the victim of sexual assault, we put specific safety parameters in place so that the victim feels safe and that the client is not having any contact with the victim. And a lot of times there's protection orders in place. These are also called restraining orders.
Jimena, we also lost your screen share, so you might want to connect that again.
Oh, sorry about that. Only tell me. Okay. Good.
Yeah. There is a question while you are working on that. The question is, what about halfway houses? What happens in those? Like, what are the conditions they will be in?
So I always say a halfway house is not paradise. You're not going into a spa. It's definitely not a hotel. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so halfway houses are they're in the communities. We have one specifically. We have two in Jefferson County. One is the male facility, and it's called ICCS. A lot of these halfway houses are privately owned. They're not owned by the state of Colorado. So the male halfway house in Jefferson County is off of Colfax and Kendall, and it's actually in an old tuberculosis hospital. And that's where we house our men that are in community corrections. Now, the women's facility is over off of Colfax and Sims. And just a few years ago, they created a facility for just women because it was very difficult to house both the men and women in one halfway house. There's many other halfway houses. Basically, when somebody is in a halfway house, they have a curfew, they meet with the case manager, everything is authorized, they have to be home at a certain time. They have to comply with certain treatment groups. They have to work. They have to pay rent. They have to budget things. And as they phase up through their community correction sentence, and they're able to go to the community, like as they do well, they're able to go home on passes, and they're able to then live in their own apartment, but they still have to, connect with their parole officer. Does that answer your question about halfway houses?
I'll let her respond, but if you want to keep going.
Okay. So the most important is, we talked a little bit about making sure that the offender takes accountability for their crime. And that's really the main process to start the healing and start the recovery, right? We want somebody to admit what they do so that we can move forward. We definitely want to motivate them to change. We provide resources, we provide services, we help them pay their treatment, we have them do UAs, they go to classes, they come and meet with us. They have to follow the court order. So if the judge says you have to complete substance abuse treatment, then they have to do substance abuse treatment. If the judge says you have to do classes, parenting classes, or community service, it's my job to make sure that they follow through with that during that amount of time. So if they have a year of probation, my job to make sure that they're doing what they need to be doing so that they can finish probation on time and have everything that they need to get done. And then the terms and conditions of probation, there are specific terms and conditions of probation that they have to follow, like they can't get in trouble, they can't use drugs, they can't, leave the state of Colorado without permission, they have to complete all their appointments, they have to reside where they say they're going to reside, because we do verify residences, we do home visits based on the offense. Questions about that?
Yep.
All right, let's go to the next slide. So basically, we meet with offenders on a regular basis, and it's all based on their risk needs. So for example, I supervise high-risk female offenders, so I am required by statute, which is the book of law in the state of Colorado, to meet with my clients up to 5 times a month. So I usually meet with them weekly. Some clients that are on probation meet with their probation officer once a month, or some of them meet every other month, or some of them meet a couple times a week. It depends on their risk level. So if you're on a probation for a DUI, as long as you're doing pretty well, you're doing what you need to be doing, like you're working and you're going to your classes, you're probably going to meet with your probation officer once a month. The women that I supervise are really, really high risk, and they're actively using heroin, fentanyl, methamphetamines. Usually I meet with them on a weekly basis. One of the biggest issues that we're dealing with probation right now is substance abuse. So we do assessments to make sure that we're referring clients to the appropriate treatment agency so that they can maintain sobriety and stay in the community substance free. So not using any drugs or alcohol. We want them to get a job. We want them to do well. We want them to be with their families, but we want them to be substance abuse free. And I could talk a lot about drugs in a little bit if you guys have questions. So a lot of the tools that we use on probation is we do a lot of training. So we want to make sure that we're motivating our clients to do well. We really want them to move forward. So we do a lot of motivational interviewing. So for example, when I'm meeting with a client and they're telling me their story, or I ask them a question, I ask them a lot of open-ended questions like, tell me more about that. How did you get there? How did that happen? Who did you meet? Where did you meet them? So a lot of the questions that we have, a lot of the training that we have is to really have our clients open up with us instead of saying, did you make it that day? Instead of a yes or no question, we ask a lot of open-ended questions. We want to make sure that we're providing them with the tools, which is cognitive skill building. And really what that means is that we want them to start thinking better. We want them to get out of that criminal mentality so that they can be productive members in their community. So they could be good parents, so they could be good employees, so they could be good tenants, so they pay their rent on time, so that they can pay their bills on time. We want to give them those type of skills. Um, Community service that's a statutorial requirement, which again, it's the big criminal book that tells the courts that, it's better to give somebody some community service so that they can give back to the community, right? So we do a lot of really neat things and get creative with community service. So I have a woman who's an artist, and she is actually going to be drawing a mural for us. So we want to really focus on their strengths. In-home detention, what this means is that these are sanctions, which means if somebody's not doing what they need to be doing and I'm worried about them and I need them to comply with what I'm asking them to do, I can put them on what's called an ankle bracelet. See this ankle bracelet right here? And this tells me, I go into a system and I give them a curfew and it tells me when they're home or when they're not home. So that means that they have to be home at a certain time. So a lot of times if I have somebody on in-home detention, I only let them out of the home for about 8 hours a day so that they can go to work and come back home so they don't get in trouble. We use this a lot with our juvenile offenders that are on probation. Remember when we talked a little bit about how we have victims, and if we have a victim who's a victim of a sex assault and we have a perpetrator who's in the community, we want to put them on a GPS system, it's a global positioning monitor. And really what it is that it looks like this also. It looks like an ankle monitor, and it tells me exactly where they're at. So I know if I get a call from the victim saying, I think that Johnny is at my son's school and I'm worried that he's going to be there, then I can look it up in the system and it'll tell me exactly where they're at, what building and what floor they're in, so that I know how to alert the authorities. And what happens is we have somebody on a GPS system, we always give them an area where they can go or where they cannot go. So it's basically a circle on the map that I say you cannot get out of it, go leave this circle, or you cannot be within a mile from this circle. So it'll alert me also if Johnny is driving on the highway around this area. So I know where he's at all times. A scram monitor also looks like a little monitor like this. And basically what a scram monitor does is it tells me if this person is consuming alcohol. So if we have somebody on a DUI who has a really bad problem drinking, and my job is to make sure that the community is safe, and I'm worried that he's going to be drinking and driving, I will put him on a scram monitor to see if we have if he's consuming any alcohol, and it'll give me alerts. Yes, that is, Kayla, I'm looking at the chats now, so I'm able to see them. So what this in-home detention is, that is what's called house arrest. It is the same thing. So we use this as a sanction. Let me look at these other questions. Did I answer about the conditions of the halfway house?
Yes.
Basically, there's a cafeteria and there's people that they all sleep in the same room.
Yes, you did. Yeah, so you did answer the question about, is that house arrest and is home detention the same as house arrest?
Yeah, home detention is the same as house arrest. And a lot of times what happens is we can, as a probation officer, we can sanction up to 96 hours of community service, and we can keep somebody on in-home detention as long as we like to, but it is expensive. It's about $6 a day. And sometimes we have our clients pay for that. So it's not realistic to keep somebody on it for the 2 years, but if we need to keep somebody on for a couple months, then we do that. Urine screens. So these are, when people pee in a cup, basically, so that we know if they're using drugs or not. We test for ecstasy, we test for marijuana, we test for heroin, we test for methamphetamines. It's an 8 panel, so we test for benzodiazepines, we test which is Xanax. We test for Percocets, we test for all of that to see if there's somebody using drugs while on probation. Usually, for example, like the women that I supervise, they do like 2 UAs a week for me. A lot of people on probation will do maybe 1 a month, maybe twice a month. It just depends on their level of supervision. Polygraphs. Polygraphs are used more for sex offenders to see if they've been around children or if they've been around their victim or if they're not doing things that they need to be doing. Usually polygraphs are used as a form of an investigation, and not typically will they be admissible in court. It just depends. So there was a question, and I'll read the question. It says, what if you take like a painkiller for medical reasons? Will that be excused? It depends. So if you go to the hospital and you get a surgery, a lot of times what we do is I ask clients to bring in their medications and we count their medications. Sometimes I have people document when they take their medications, or we have somebody be a responsible party to give them their medications if there's some concerns that somebody has. Because painkillers are considered opiates and they're really, really addictive. So if I have a client that's a heroin addict and they're going in to get some dental work, they're not allowed to get any opiates or any painkillers. So it just depends, because we do contact doctors, we contact dentists, we let them know that this person is an addict. And doctors nowadays can lose their licenses if they are aware and they provide medication to clients that are addicted to, fentanyl or any type of an opiate like heroin. And then Offender Link is a system that that the state has implemented, where it's a monitoring system where people that are really low risk, that are doing everything that they need to be doing, they call in like every month, and they give the probation officer who's supervising that specific caseload an update. So basically they don't have to come in anymore. All they have to do is call in. They give us an update. If we have any questions, we call them back. So it's just basically a call-in system, and it's called Offender Link. And we use that a lot. Any questions about supervision tools? Great questions, guys. Please keep asking them. So the next slide talks a little bit about, what do we do as far as referrals, and how do we assess somebody that comes in, right? We want to make sure that we're not putting somebody who doesn't have a drug problem into drug groups, right? So we want to make sure that we're meeting their needs. So if you have a drug problem, you do substance abuse group. If you have mental health issues, we put you in, with a counselor. We make sure that you're assessed for medications. We get evaluations. If you're on probation for domestic violence, then you have to go to domestic violence treatment. If you're on a probation for a sex offense, you're going to go to sex offender treatment. And a lot of, again, we want to make sure that we're changing the lifestyle so that this doesn't happen again, so we don't have a recidivism, right? That's what we call when people keep getting into trouble. So we want to make sure that criminal mentality, that criminal thinking, that behavior is changing. So that's what we call cognitive behavioral issues. We also have clients that are, that have head injuries. We want to make sure that their medical needs are being taken care of. So we do a lot of that. We talk with a lot of professionals to make sure that clients are getting the needs and the services that they need. Questions about treatment?
Lorena, I do. What is the percentage of treatment that is actually working? And is that different for each and every area?
What is a percentage of treatment that is actually working? It just depends. That's really hard to say because it depends on the individual. So, and there's got to be motivation. So you have to want to change so that you can get better. So if I'm an addict and I am using methamphetamines every day and my probation officer says, you got to go to treatment or you're going to go to jail. And if I'm not ready to change, I'm never going to change. I have to be ready to want to get sober. And so it just depends on the specific client. I mean, I've had clients that have been shooting up heroin for years and they go to treatment and they're doing well, but there's got to be that buy-in. They have to be ready to do it. So I would say, I mean, and with the high risk offenders that I supervise, a percentage could be maybe 20% if they're really willing to change to make, I just terminated, 4 clients in the last couple of weeks and they were severely addicted to heroin and methamphetamine. So, I wouldn't be in this field if I didn't believe that people can change. And I know people can change and I see it every day. So there is hope out there. And so
what does terminate mean? I'm sorry.
terminate means that your probation is done. So you get off of probation and you're free to fly is what I tell my women. So, but they still call me and they come back and visit. So that's really rewarding.
Awesome, thank you.
So a lot of things that we also work with with probation is, we always want to make sure that we're getting clients the help that they need other than just a specific treatment. So if they want parenting skills, if they want to, go to college, if they want to, become a culinary cook, we provide all of those other skills and resources so that they can better their lives. We give them a lot of problem solving skills. We do life skills. We also help them, how to budget. How do you shop healthy for your children? How do you, how do you cook a meal, without having to be a 7-Eleven sandwich all the time? We want to give them the tools and the resources so that they can become better parents, better people in the community. And it's based on theirs, on their plan. So I have a gal that wants to become a barber. And so I'm trying to get her community service hours for going to school to become a barber. So it's really trying to get creative in that area. In the meantime, trying to get her better. So we need to provide, the victim notification is really, really important. So we also, we give victims some information. A lot of information is confidential, but anything that has to go back to court. So for example, if you're not doing well on probation and you're using drugs and you don't want to go to treatment, then my job is to take you back to court to let the court know what's happening. And then what happens then is either you decide that you want to get better, or the court can then resentence you and you can go to jail or prison or community corrections, which is a halfway house. So it just depends. But during that whole process, the victim is always notified if the person is going back to court. And we communicate with victims all the time. Victims will call us and say, Johnny keeps coming to my door, Johnny keeps calling me, and there's a restraining order. Excuse me, and we need to report that to law enforcement because that is against the law and it is a violation of the protection order, so that person can get arrested. We meet with offenders, typically, we have offices. I have chairs in my office. My clients come in. Sometimes, the majority of my clients have children, so I have toys in my office, candy. We want to make sure that they feel invited, that they feel safe, that this is a safe place to talk, that they're comfortable, that we have a good relationship with them. We also, like I said, if we have a client that's not doing so well and I have to take him back to court, we'll go visit them in jail so that we can see what it is that they want to do. Sometimes they just need to detox in jail so they can get the drugs out of their system and think clearly. Questions about that? We can go to all the jails.
There's a question, but I think I'm going to leave it to the end, kind of like just about like you deal with it.
We do have a lot of contact with clients, but with COVID recently, we're doing a lot of our appointments virtually. So just like I'm meeting with you guys today, we meet with clients virtually. Based on the needs of my clients, I have had some clients come in to see me. And we meet with them. Nobody's coming into our offices right now. We're meeting with everybody in conference rooms. We wear masks. And we disinfect everything. We spray everything with bleach and Lysol so we keep our clients safe and we keep ourselves safe. So with COVID right now, we're not doing a lot of home visits, except some of our sex offender officers. They are going into the community and they are doing home visits. Here you see, a day in a PO's life. We go to court all the time. We're always in court. We are the messengers for the court on what's going on with that specific person. So if I'm sending somebody back to court, I need to let the court know why we're there. So there's a report that goes through, the judge has it, and then the court will ask us questions. And we know our clients better than anybody, so we give the court the information. We talk with the district attorneys, we talk with their attorneys, we talk with treatment providers, sometimes family members. We want to make sure that everybody is a good support system so that we can get this person back in the community and safe. So we are in court a lot. And right now with COVID, a lot of our court hearings are virtual. And I can probably go into one of the court hearings and see if I can share with you guys so that you guys can see what's going on. But court hearings are public, so you can always go into a courtroom and observe court hearings. Again, we do home visits, and we don't carry guns, but we do wear bulletproof vests so that we're safe in the community. This is my vest. We wear it underneath our clothes. We don't wear, we wear our badge. We have our badge that we take with us so that we're identified in the community if they have questions. Because, when we're walking into an apartment complex, we don't look like the neighbors. So people know something's going on. And so it's important that, we're respectful, we're friendly. We never go alone. We always have a partner with us. And because we don't carry guns, we work really closely with our law enforcement officers. So we carry a radio, and we let the radio know that we're going to be working that day and that we're in the area and we're going into that specific house. And dispatch checks in with us. If we don't check in with them, when they reach out to us, they will send law enforcement immediately to check in on us. We do not carry tasers. We don't even carry handcuffs, and we don't carry pepper spray. There is some conversation with our chief judges and our judicial branch where they want us to carry pepper spray. And I honestly, really, the pepper spray would probably be for the little chihuahuas in the houses that we go and see, because those are the worst ones. But the pets are really dangerous for us. Usually, our clients are very respectful. They let us in the home. We do have the right to search as part of your condition of probation. If we have concerns that there's guns or drugs in the home, we are able to search, but we do carry gloves, especially with fentanyl. We've been really careful. We can look in your purse. We can look at your phone. There's lots of things that we can do, and there's things that we cannot do. But we do go in pairs. Now, parole officers are a little different. These are people that are officers that are supervising people that are coming out of prison. And in the state of Colorado, they do carry guns, and they carry tasers, and they carry handcuffs. They all wear bulletproof vests, and they're all very, very identified. So they will wear clothing that says parole on their shirt, parole on their back, parole on their hats, so that they are very well identified, because they do carry weapons. Colorado is one of the very few states that doesn't carry guns. Most states, Texas, California, New York, all probation officers carry guns. And again, they just love us because we're their probation officers. No, a lot of clients do have a good relationship with their probation officers because they do see that we really care and we want them to do better. We don't get a bonus because we have 10 more people in jail. We don't get a bonus because we send more people back to court. In fact, probation officers, we are government workers. So we have a government pension, and we get paid pretty well, but we're not like millionaires. This is a humanitarian position, so we work for people, and we do it because we love what we do. And so one of the questions is, do you have any clients that have kept in touch after probation, or Or is that prohibited? Oh, absolutely. We have clients that come in and visit us all the time. For example, we had toys to give out for Toys for Tots this year for Christmas. And I've contacted a lot of my previous clients that had children and they came in, and it was just really nice to see them and see that they're doing well and that their kids are doing well. Yes, I have clients that I have come back and talked to the women that are on probation. We can always communicate with our clients after they're on probation. People come in and say hello. I had a client that called, it's living in California, that wants to get his record seal that I supervised 10 years ago. I couldn't even remember him until I looked up his case. But you do, and it's really rewarding. So no, they can always come back and talk with us. I'm going to go briefly over this. We have accountants that meet with our clients to pay their supervision fines and costs. They're called collections investigators. They will set up a payment plan or a garnishment. We have IT services. We have a lot of, our systems are very highly protected. So we have a whole team of technology officers that, make sure that all of our systems are secure. And, they help us with the technology. And we use volunteers and interns. So if you're ever interested of becoming an intern or a volunteer, once you graduate, we would be happy to have you. Or if you would like to shadow a probation officer in an area that you are interested in, I can make that arrangement for you. Or if you just want to come and sit with me for a week, you're more than welcome to as well.
Lorena, do you have to be a certain age to volunteer or be an intern?
We would definitely, if you, as far as high school students, if you want to shadow, we can do that. But we definitely encourage them to be 18 and older to be a volunteer, because you have access to a lot of confidential information, and there's a process and an application fee to do that. But we have interns that are in college that are they have full caseloads that come in, 3 or 4 times a week, and they are actually doing probation work as their interns in college. So, and a lot of those interns get hired. So it's really important to get your foot in the door, especially in the criminal justice field, because it'll help you identify exactly where you want to go. I just want to make sure that there are very similar professions to probation. So again, probation is after you commit the crime, you go to court, you get sentenced, you get put on probation. Now, parole is you commit the crime, you don't do good on probation, or the crime is so horrible that you can't be in the community, then you go to prison, and then you get out on parole. So parole is always after prison, okay? Then we have pretrial services, which means that you meet with the case manager before you go to court and get sentenced. So they might have you, put you on a monitor like a GPS monitor, or have you do UAs before you go to court and get sentenced to see if you're going to do well on supervision. So that's a pretrial services. Then we have diversion. So let's say that you don't have a criminal history. Diversion means a deferred judgment. So it means that if you're on supervision and they are supervised through, they have diversion officers through the district attorney's office, and they are supervised. And if you do good, then your record goes away. So it's, you do good and then it erases. So you don't have a conviction. So that's the good thing about diversion. So then if you don't get in trouble, you don't have it on your record. Municipal probation means, we have a lot of different police departments, which those are called municipalities. So for example, sometimes, it's a petty theft where you get caught stealing at the Walmart and it's like a $20 offense. Sometimes you'll get on probation through the city of Wheat Ridge. They have their own probation officers, or the city of Arvada, they have their own probation officers. The city of Westminster has their own probation officers. That's a lower level of probation versus state probation, which would be here with us. A lot of the municipal cases are for like juveniles, for tickets, really low level, low risk offenders. Again, community corrections. We talked a little bit about that. Oops, let me go back. Community corrections are the halfway houses. And I think for my next presentation, Yvette, I'm going to take some pictures of the halfway houses just so that they know what they look like. And then private probation. So we also have, because the state had so many clients, that we started contracting with what's called Intervention or Armands. Those are the two agencies that are private agencies that we can send some of our lower risk offenders, like maybe a driving and a revocation client that the court has some concerns that needs to be supervised for a year. Those are our intervention officers will supervise those clients, or some low risk domestic violence cases versus us taking the really high risk ones, they would supervise our lower risk ones. And then we have victim services officers. We have officers that only deal with victims. And the police department, the district attorneys, and probation all have specific departments to work with victims, because victims have a lot of rights, and that's really important to know. So Jefferson County is a combined county. We have our big courthouse, which is off of 6th Avenue, 6th and Colfax. That's our big, beautiful building. It's gorgeous. If you've never been in there, please come by and visit us. And then Gilpin is our county that's up in Blackhawk, which is over by the casino. So we have a courtroom in there, and we service them too. So we supervise Gilpin County clients as well. And that is it for my presentation as far as an overview of what probation does. But I am more than happy to answer questions. A little bit about some of my personal experiences is, do you want to know more about the cases that I supervise, or how?
There is one question though before you.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Sorry.
Well, I don't think it's actually, it was sent to me. It says, because of the heavy mental load that this can take upon parole officers, which is really hard stuff that you experience and that you see, how do you, I'm just curious on how heavy that is. How heavy is all of this information and the daily kind of cases that you have? Somebody's asking. I'm trying to reword it. And what kind of self-care do you have?
Definitely. That was just what I was going to talk about. It's really important that you're able to identify what is very difficult for you, right? So, we meet with clients that are really telling us some really, really sad stories. And, as a human being, we feel what they're talking about, and we cry. There's times that I cry with my clients. We process things. And I also have to be able to talk to my colleagues, which are my coworkers, to talk about, the things that we're dealing with. We do a lot of training. That we go to a lot of training sessions, what's called vicarious trauma, because the trauma that person experienced, when they're telling me about it, it's hurting us. Like, it affects us vicariously. Like, if we have a child that gets hurt, or a woman was sexually assaulted, or I find out that they were, sexually abused as children, and we're trying to process that so that we can get them to where they need to be as far as recovery. We do a lot of training with that. One of the things that it's really important for me is that, I can't go home and talk to my husband or my kids about this, because they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to hear about it. And that's my safe place. So I have to be able to shut that off when I go home. Sometimes it's not that easy. There's times where you will have some nightmares that you're feeling some of those emotions because of what that person went through. Or sometimes, I've had a client that has overdosed on my caseload, and that really hits my heart dearly, because I really try to help that person. So we're dealing with people's lives. We have to be able to learn how to take care of ourselves and take care of others. And we have the ability to meet with therapists. The department, the judicial branch, will provide that for us if we need it. Really communicating with our supervisors. If we have a really tough case, it's okay to take a mental health day and take a day off. You need to be able to take care of yourself. But a lot of it is really processing with your coworkers, talking with your coworkers, and really taking care of yourself. And there's a lot of things that are out of your control that there's nothing that you could have done different.
Great.
But yeah, it's pretty heavy. Yeah. We're hearing people's problems every day. I always say we're like therapists, but without the actual therapy session, because we want them to go to therapy and deal with that stuff, but we're hearing it every day on a daily basis.
Quick before everybody's kind of logging off now, but what degrees do you have to have in order to take the career path that you have taken? And I know you have a
Yes,
few other ones. And I wish we had
sure,
longer because you also have
sure.
forensic experience and all this. We could do
Yes,
another guest speaking session and talk about your experiences. Today was just an overview of being a probation officer in all the areas in criminal justice. And then maybe we'll have you back again so everybody can hear this to talk
sure.
about the experiences that you've had, including like your forensic experience that I think a lot of students really interested. Maybe your personal experiences about going to homes that you've also shared. But what degrees do you need in order to be in this kind of career?
So my degree is in criminal justice, but you can have a human services degree, you can have a sociology degree, you can have a psychology degree to get into probation. Um, there's also a social work LCSW degree because it's a lot of therapeutic training. I have a lot of officers here that have those degrees as well. I also have a master's in forensic psychology. And so my master's is in how to identify criminal profiling. I can actually, go to the prisons and assess, some of the serial killers and provide that information to the court on what my professional opinion would be for that person to be in the community. So having a forensics degree could be a lot of different things. So a lot of the questions that I've had in the past is a lot of students want to know how to be like a CSI person, right? And so in order to be a CSI person, you have to be a police officer first. So you have to have a degree, become a police officer. And then within the police departments, you can become the crime scene investigator, right? So that's when you go out and you take the pictures, you take the evidence, and then you take that evidence to a lab. And that's what a forensic chemist does, right? So if you want to be the guy that's looking in, doing the DNA testing and, looking at the fibers underneath the microscope, then you need a degree in chemistry, forensics and chemistry if you want to be that. I've had a lot of questions on how does somebody become a coroner? How does somebody look at the dead bodies on how the person, died, right? They do the autopsies like they do, you see it on TV, right? There are coroners that are, they're actually doctors that do the autopsy. So to become a coroner, you have to have a medical license so that you can see how that person specifically died. And then we have a lot of those medical examiners come into the courtroom when there's like a murder trial and they tell us how that person specifically died. So any questions, let me give you guys my information. If you would like to shadow me at any time, please feel free to contact me. Yvette knows how to find me. Believe me, she has my phone number, my cell number. She knows where I live.
I know your mom. I know
she
your
knows
sisters.
my mom. She knows my sisters. And then let me give you my email. Please feel free to contact me. I have a coworker who, his daughter just got hired with the FBI. So if anybody wants to know anything about FBI, that would be great. I can connect you with them. Anybody, if you want to shadow at a police department, let me know. We can get you in contact with them.
Awesome, thank you. And I know we're recording, so if you guys have to log off, I know it's the end of AE, but this is fantastic, and I would love to have you back again, Lorena, to talk about your experiences that I know are so intriguing and interesting in all the facets, especially the forensics. And we have a few of our classes here in Project Lead the Way that teach specifically that, and it just is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And then just what you took, the route you took, and then how you got there, and you have kids and you have a husband and you have a actual life, and then what it took for you to manage that, because you didn't go to school and then started your life, you did it all at the same time. So and our students can do the same, and so we really appreciate you coming as always, and I look forward to getting you back on board before the semester ends.
Anytime. You let me know when you want me to come back.
Thank you, Lorena.
I love you guys.
Bye.
Thank
Have
you.
a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.